Hi, everyone. So, the famine was still severe in the land. Joseph's brothers were still back with their father in Canaan, and Joseph was still governor of Egypt. Simeon was still in prison, and the food that the brothers had brought back to their families, it had run out. And so their families were starting to get hungry, and the situation was starting to get desperate. And so Jacob called his sons in and he said, "Sons, you have to go back to Egypt and you have to get us some food." Well, Judah came to Jacob and he said, "Father, we can't go back. The governor, he said that we will not see his face again unless Benjamin comes back with us and proves that we're not spies." He said, "There is no way we can go back. We will not be able to buy food, and we will not be able to get Simeon out of jail unless Benjamin comes back with us." Well, Jacob got so upset. He said, "Why did you ever tell them that you had a younger brother? Why did you do this to me?" Well, the brothers said, "How could we know? How could we ever know that they were going to say, 'You have to bring your youngest brother back or else we're going to think you're spies'? We didn't know." He asked us very specific questions. He said, "Do you have a father? Do you have a brother?" And we just answered his questions. There was no way that we could ever know that he would demand that Benjamin come back with us. So Judah went to his father. He said, "Father, you have to let Judah go with us. We need to go right away. Otherwise, your children, your grandchildren, your entire family, we are going to starve to death." He said, "You need to let us go. If we hadn't delayed and we had gone, we would have already been there and back 2 times. But we need to go now. Father, I personally guarantee that Benjamin will be fine. And you know what? If I don't bring him back right and stand him before you, then you can blame me for the rest of my life." Well, Jacob finally realized he had to let them go. They had no choice. So he said, fine. If there's nothing else to do, then we'll do that. But this is what you need to do. I think you need to bring some gifts to the governor, some of the special foods that we have in this land. Okay, so I think you need to bring some balm and some honey and some balm. And you need to bring some myrrh. And you need to bring him a gift of some spices. And you need to bring him some pistachios. And you need to bring him some almonds. And then the next thing you need to do is you need to bring double the amount of money to make up for the money you found in your sacks when you were coming home the last time. And maybe there was just some mistake, and they got confused. And fine, take Benjamin and go quickly. And may the Lord bless you, and may he make that governor be gracious to you and send back Simeon and send back Benjamin to me. But if he doesn't and something should happen, if I have to grieve, then I have to grieve." Well, the brothers, they very quickly gathered up the things on their donkeys and they hurried off to Egypt to get food. So as soon as they got to Egypt, they presented themselves before Joseph and they bowed down with their faces to the ground. And Joseph saw that Benjamin was with them. And so he called his steward over and he said, "Take these men back to my house because we are going to have lunch together. Prepare a big meal." And so the brothers, they actually didn't speak Egyptian, as you recall. And so all of a sudden, they were being taken to Joseph's house and they got scared. They didn't know they were going for lunch. And so they got scared. They said, "Oh no, this is because of the money that we found in our sacks." They think that we didn't pay for the food last time. And you know what? They're going to attack us and they're going to make us slaves and steal our donkeys. And so as soon as they got to the house, they went up to the steward right in the doorway and they said, "Oh, please, sir, listen, the last time we came, we bought food. And then when we were on our way home, we opened our sacks and there was the money that we had paid for the food, the exact amount in our sack. And we don't know how it got there. We didn't do what we promised. We didn't steal anything." The steward said, No, everything's fine. I received your money. Your God must have put that money back in your sacks. Well, the brothers, they were so surprised. And then the steward brought Simeon out to them. And he brought them into the house and he let them wash up and clean up from their trip. and he fed their donkeys. And then while they were there, they heard that they were going to have lunch with the governor. Well, they got their gifts ready. They prepared all their gifts, their balm and their honey and their spices and their myrrh and their almonds and their pistachios. They got it all ready. And when Joseph arrived, they bowed down again with their face to the ground, and they gave him their gifts. And Joseph looked and he saw Benjamin. And he said, well, first he said, how are you? How have you been? And how's your father? Is he still living? And they said, oh, our father's doing fine. And he said, is this the younger brother you were talking about? And they said, yes. And he said, God be gracious to you, my son. But Joseph had missed Benjamin so much that he got so emotional, he had to leave. And he found a place and he cried and he cried. And then he got himself together and he washed his face and he went back in and he said, okay, we're going to serve the food. And so Joseph, being the ruler in Egypt, was served at a table by himself. And then the Egyptians that ate with him normally, they sat at another table. And then a peculiar thing happened. His brothers were seated at a table. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. They were seated at the table in order from oldest to youngest. They couldn't believe it. How on earth did anyone know their ages? How did they know how to put them in order? Then when the food came, they found that Benjamin had 5 times as much food as anyone else. Well, they didn't mind. They just all sat and they happily ate together. Then Joseph, he called his steward over and he said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to fill these men's sacks with as much grain, as much food as they can carry. And then I want you to put their money back into each sack. But in the youngest one's sack, I want you to put his money. And I want you to put my silver goblet. Now, we're going to pretend this is a silver goblet because this isn't silver. But I want you to put my silver special goblet. And so the steward did. But the brothers, they didn't know any of this. And so the next morning at dawn, they got up and they loaded their donkeys and they started off. They didn't get very far when Joseph, he called his steward and he said, all right, I want you to go after those men. When you catch them, I want you to say this. I want you to say, why did you repay good for evil? Why have you done such a terrible thing? Why did you steal my master's silver cup? This is not a good thing that you've done. It's very wicked. Well, the steward chased after Joseph's brothers, and when he caught up with them, he said Joseph's words to them. And the brothers said, oh, why does my Lord say these things? We have not stolen anything. We promise. Honestly, why would we steal anything? We brought back the money that we found in our sacks the last time. And so why would we steal silver or gold from my Lord? We have not done this. In fact, if you find that silver cup in any of our sacks, you can kill that person and keep the rest of us as slaves. Well, the steward said, well, fine. What I will do is whoever I find that has stolen that silver cup, he will become my slave, and everyone else can leave. Well, the brothers opened their sacks one by one. They opened them, and the steward went through them from the oldest to the youngest. And when he got to Benjamin's sack, he reached in and he found the cup. The brothers were so upset. They tore their clothes, they loaded their donkeys, and they headed right back for the city right away. Well, Joseph was still in his house, and they came in and they fell down on their face before him. And he said, "Why have you done such a thing? Do you not think that someone like me can figure these things out?" And Judah looked at Joseph. He stood up and he said, "Please," he said, what can we say? What can we do to prove that we're innocent? You're just going to have to keep us, I guess, as slaves. And Joseph said, you see, Joseph actually was testing them. He wanted to see if his brothers had changed at all. And so he said, no. I'm not going to keep all of you as slaves. That wouldn't be fair. Only the thief. The thief will remain here. Benjamin will remain here. He stole my cup. He's going to stay here as my slave. The rest of you can go back free. Well, Judah came forward. He said, "Please, my Lord, please let me say something to you." He said, "I know that you're equal with Pharaoh, but please don't be angry with me. I need to speak. You see, last time you said to us, 'Do you have a father? Do you have a brother?' And we said, 'Yes, we have an aged father, and he had a son in his old age, and he loves that boy.' And then you said, 'Well, the only way that you'll ever get food is if you bring that younger brother back.' And we said, 'No, we can't. Our aged father, he would die if anything happened to the boy.' And you said, 'No, you will not see my face again unless your youngest brother comes here and you prove to me that you're not spies.' So we went home, and our father, when the grain ran out, he said, 'You have to go back to Egypt to bring food, to get food.' And we said, 'We can't go back without Benjamin.' And our father said, 'No, you can't take Benjamin. If anything happens to him, like it happened to his other brother, I will just die.' And so Judah said, 'Please, I have guaranteed that I will bring Benjamin back. And so let me take Benjamin's place. I will be your slave forever, and just let Benjamin go home so that I don't have to see my father have such great sorrow.' Well, Joseph, he couldn't control himself anymore, and he ordered everyone out of the room except for his brothers. And then he looked at his brothers and he said, 'It's me. It's me, it's Joseph. It's your brother.' And they were astonished. They couldn't believe it, and they were terrified. And he said, 'It's me. It really is.' He said, 'Is my father really still alive?' But they were so terrified, they couldn't answer him. And so he said again, 'Come closer. Look, it really is me. It's Joseph, the one you sold into slavery. I'm now ruler of all of Egypt. And Pharaoh's household, I'm over Pharaoh's household, and I'm a father to Pharaoh. And you need to just relax and don't be angry with yourselves, and don't be afraid, because God sent me here ahead of you because he wanted to save your lives. You see, there's been 2 years of famine, but 5 more years are coming. And so God is the one who sent me here ahead of you to save our family. Don't be upset with you. It wasn't you. It was God who sent me here." And then he said, "Please, I want you to go back and tell my father that I'm alive and that I want him to come and live here, and I want all of you to come and live near me, and I will take care of you because there's 5 more years of famine coming, and I will take care of you and keep you alive." And then he looked at his brothers, and they were still having a hard time believing him. And he said, "Come, look at me. It's Joseph. You know it's me. And Benjamin, you know it's me too. You know it's me. Now hurry. Go back to my father. Tell him all of these things." Well, when Joseph saw his brothers, he became so emotional. He had started crying. He had cried really, really loud, and he had hugged Benjamin, and he had cried and cried and cried, and he even hugged his other brothers, and he cried when he hugged them too. And his crying was so loud that the Egyptians could hear him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it too. And so when Pharaoh and all his officials learned that Joseph's brothers had come, they were happy for Joseph. And so Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers to tell your father to come here, and the best of the land will be here for him. Tell them to come, and I'm going to send carts so that they don't have to travel by foot, and the little children and the wives and your father can ride back to Egypt in the carts with all their belongings. And tell them not even to bring their stuff, not even to bother bringing their things. Whatever we have here is theirs. And so Joseph sent his brothers off. And he sent them with lots of provisions, and he gave each of his brothers a new set of clothing. But to Benjamin, he gave him 5 sets of clothing and 300 shekels of silver. And Joseph knew his brothers still, and he said, as they left, "Don't quarrel along the way." Well, the brothers reached Canaan, and they went to Jacob, and they said, "You are not going to believe this, but we just saw Joseph. He is ruler of all of Egypt, and he's alive. And he wants us to come and live with him because he said that there's a famine. The famine here is actually going to last for 5 more years, and he wants us to come." Well, Jacob, he was so astonished, he could not believe it. He couldn't believe that Joseph was still alive. But when he heard what Joseph had said, when he saw these carts coming and all the provisions, Joseph had sent all these provisions on donkeys for him, he believed it. He was convinced, and he was so amazed, and he was so excited and happy, and he said, "I'm going to go see Joseph." And so they traveled to Egypt. And when they arrived in Egypt, Joseph heard, and he got in his chariot, and he rode to meet his father. And when he saw his father, he wrapped his arms around him, and he hugged him, and he cried, and he cried. And he was so happy to see him. So we've come to the end of our story, and it's been pretty amazing to see how God took really bad situations and brought good out of them, and how God was with Joseph the entire time. And Joseph trusted God, and he was able to forgive his brothers for all the bad things that they had done to him. And Joseph saw that God had used this situation for good and had saved Joseph's family through it. Well, thanks for listening. See you next time.